All right, good morning, everybody. I'm Zac Hall from Microsoft, and today I'm joined by Ryan.
Good morning, Ryan Lindemann from Esri.
And so real quick, before we get started here, how many people are familiar with Esri? Show of hands, a couple people. Okay. How many people are familiar with how to utilize geographic information systems to visualize your data and get better data-driven insights? All right, a couple people are already in here. So maybe you've already seen this presentation before, but hopefully this will be good and give everybody a quick overview of how Esri's technologies in the Microsoft platforms can help all your companies and your enterprises get more real-time insights from your data by being able to visualize them and see that location in real time. So Ryan?
Thanks, Zach. Okay, so today in this session, we will go over basically the history of Esri and then our partnership with Microsoft. Now we're going to dive into a little bit about why geospatial data and analytics matter. I do have a recorded demonstration that I can talking about some geo AI capabilities we have in ArcGIS Online, and then how you can share that information out through an integration with Microsoft applications. And then we'll do a little technology deep dive on the Esri and ArcGIS system, and then how that plays with Microsoft as well. And then we'll finish that up with some Q&A. So a little bit about Esri. Esri was founded in 1969 by Zac and 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃. And the Esri story can be told in these kind of 4 publications we have here on the screen. A digital pioneer, Zac is synonymous with GIS, and the Forbes article there accurately puts Zac as the North Star of the digital mapping movement. Zac's vision is for an interconnected planet powered by a geospatial system of systems akin to our human nervous system. And that's what the focus of that TED Talk is. Esri is actually a privately held company, and the Bloomberg piece highlights the fact that Esri's focus has never been on profits and shareholders. They actually invest in their most important stakeholders, which is the millions of users who are working to solve the world with our technology. So the golden age of location intelligence has arrived. The opportunity to collect customer location information is exploding, and modern data, analytics, and business optimization practices are increasingly leveraging this location-based information to win, serve, and retain customers. So here's a little overview of Esri and our over 10 million users. You can see there on that map, we have users across the world. We currently are in 33,000 businesses. 12,000 colleges and universities use Esri technology. Around 8,600 utilities companies, 12,000 NGOs, 1,200 national government agencies, over 12,000 states and regional agencies, and then about 30,000 cities and local government. So me as an employee of Esri, I'm very busy, but that's a good thing. So Zach, you want to talk a little bit about our partnership with Microsoft?
So the partnership between Esri and Microsoft goes back over 40 years. The Esri CEO, Zac Dangermond, helped release ArcMap 4.0 back in the days when MS-DOS had just come out. So you can imagine, over these past years, we've continued to collaborate and innovate together, right? It used to be MS-DOS and ArcMap. Most recently, it's now bringing spatial analytic capabilities of Esri directly into Microsoft Fabric. And then enhancing those capabilities and making them more discoverable by business users by integrating Esri's capabilities within ArcGIS for Teams and Microsoft M365 Copilot to enable users to be able to ask natural language queries against Copilot and have that query handed off to the ArcGIS Teams app to pull back the right information the user has permissions to.
Thank you. Okay, so here's a little snapshot of ArcGIS for Microsoft users. This includes our applications that we have for Microsoft 365, Power Platform, and then as Zac just mentioned, newly introduced to the Microsoft Fabric suite. So with ArcGIS, users can access their geospatial information in the Microsoft apps that they're already comfortable with. ArcGIS integrates with Microsoft's productivity applications, intelligence services, and data platforms. And that brings ArcGIS capabilities to Microsoft users. So you can see here over on the left in the Microsoft 365 application, we do have what we call add-ins or plugins for Excel, SharePoint, and Teams. In Excel, you can actually take your data from within an Excel workbook and map it within a map in that workbook, and then share content out to an existing ArcGIS Online or enterprise organization. I see it as a great stepping stone to Esri technology for non-GIS users, for analysts who maybe, they've never put information on a map or never used Esri. They can just access our system directly from within their spreadsheet. It's a great way to get introduced to our technology. The demonstration I'll show in a little bit, we have some Teams integration where there's actually an app for Microsoft Teams that you can share your ArcGIS content into a Teams channel or a Teams video call. And then SharePoint, similar, if you have a list within SharePoint and that list includes location data, you can create a map directly in that SharePoint site to map that list data. These integrations deliver 3 key benefits to enhance an organization's work. They expand the reach of geospatial professionals by allowing Microsoft apps to serve as ArcGIS clients. They extend location capabilities to the people who want and need them through the apps they're already familiar with, and they enable developers with spatial functionality and location services that work with Microsoft's configuration application process builders. So kind of taking a step back, I know a lot of you are familiar with Esri and GIS and geospatial work, but for those of you who are not, what is GIS? Well, GIS stands for Geographic Information System, and that is a system for managing, sharing, and applying geographic information. So any type of information that you have that has location data tied to it, right? And you can see in that graphic there that GIS includes maps and data, real-time data and measurements. So if we have movement data or things that move that tie locations to them, you can bring that into a map and analyze it. BIM data, remote sensing data, so if we have aerial imagery or LiDAR sensing, things like that. But also we have a series of application tools, monitoring and reporting, planning, policy, and decision-making. All of this can be used with GIS data to better promote and work in your organization. And the bottom there, that kind of summarizes it well. We deliver value across organizations, improving efficiency, communications, decision-making, and collaboration. So, as I mentioned, GIS is applied in many fields. You can see here, I actually am on Esri's public safety team. So I primarily work with law enforcement agencies across the United States. So you can see here we have things like natural disasters, national security, climate change, but then we also have industries for energy, business, urbanization and development, some of those other categories that we saw on the earlier slide. So let's shift now and talk why geospatial data and analytics matter, especially kind of since I'm on the public safety team, we see this as kind of why it matters in the terms of a disaster response or planning a large pre-planned special event or reacting to some kind of unplanned event or disaster as well. So geospatial data helps us maintain situational awareness. It helps us understand the potential impact from an incident. It can help us manage and deploy limited resources. We can monitor rapidly changing conditions. And then we can provide real-time dynamic operational briefs. So some examples we have here on the slide are some Esri applications or technology that we use to help maintain situational awareness. That dashboard on the top right of the slide, you guys have all probably seen that before. That is the dashboard that Johns Hopkins put together during COVID to keep track of current COVID cases across the United States. That was built using an ArcGIS web map and dashboard, and then that was hosted on our software as a service, ArcGIS Online, which had the benefits of Azure to scale that up. Correct, Zach?
Correct.
On the bottom left, we have what we call an ArcGIS solution. Solutions are pre-configured applications or templates that we offered to kind of help you streamline your workflows and get started in the event of a natural disaster or a disaster response situation. So that application is called the Emergency Information Manager. And that's a really cool application where you can basically pull up a map. You can draw an area on the map, so an affected area. And then I know it's kind of hard to see, but it pulls up an infographic, an ArcGIS infographic that we provide with what we call living atlas data. And that data brings in current population totals, things like demographic data, at-risk populations, some emergency information like hospital locations, critical infrastructure. So just by drawing a polygon on that map, you get instant access to all of your affected personnel in that area. Right. And then lastly here we have what we call ArcGIS briefings. So these are an interactive mapping application that allows you to kind of embed maps, apps, text, images, and put them in kind of a slide format to use in a briefing purpose. Next, we can help effectively plan and respond. So streamline damage assessments, which you'll see in the demonstration shortly, help mitigate risk, expedite recovery funding, and return to normalcy faster. So on the bottom left, again, we have another dashboard, and we also have mobile applications that ArcGIS and Esri users can use to submit information in the field, right? So this example is doing a damage assessment from the field using an application on your phone, and then submitting that information back to a centralized dashboard, either in a command post or command center. The top right is an example of some damage assessment GeoAI models that we created after the Lahaina fire in Hawaii, 2023, and I'll go over that in the demonstration shortly. And then the bottom right is another ArcGIS solution we offer called Watch Center. Watch Center allows you to select locations or areas of interest, and then using one of our real-time engines called ArcGIS Velocity, it actually takes in real-time data feeds and alerts you when a real-time data feed, whether that's in social media open source feed or some of the weather and traffic and natural disaster feeds Esri offers, whenever those feeds intersect into that buffer around an area of you choose, it's going to automatically alert you and create an alert you can send out to internal or external stakeholders. So again, just some of the powerful applications that GIS data provide, but then also being hosted on the Azure client allows us to scale up and expand as well. And finally, we can manage information sharing. We can communicate effectively with the public and media, and then share information and collaborate with partners. So on the right there, you can kind of see those are Teams environments where we have shared our applications. The first one there is a dashboard where you can embed that dashboard directly to a Teams channel. And then the second one there is another example of a Teams channel using Power Automate to kind of compile information and post that to a Teams environment. Again, all part of the demonstration we'll show here in a second. And then the bottom left, that is another solution we offer. We have another series of applications called ArcGIS Hubs. Hubs are our way of building a website, right? That you can post all of your ArcGIS applications and data to, and then share that out with the public. So in terms of a natural disaster or an event, you can stand up a hub and let your stakeholders know about current situations and statuses of an area. I know FEMA uses ArcGIS Hub to kind of collect information and share information after large events like hurricanes and other severe weather incidents. Zach, you have anything to add before we?
Yeah, the interesting thing about what Ryan was just talking about with regards to FEMA, right? A lot of times enterprises have the need to get better data-driven insights from their own internal data. But when we're talking about public sector use cases, oftentimes we need a way to communicate that data back to the constituents, right? The residents of a county, city, or state. And this is one of the ways that you can do that. Now, also as an enterprise, you could be utilizing ArcGIS dashboards to communicate information in real time back to your customers, right? Things where the data maps directly to that customer or that business that you're doing business with to show them real-time insights maybe around supply chain information that's affecting them. But again, lots of use cases. Esri, again, to level set, has over 150 different products. And so they've got a solution for everything, whatever situation you're trying to take on, there's a product for it in the Esri stack.
Yep. Another great thing about working at Esri is trying to memorize what all of those products do and the updates to them constantly. So that's fun as well. Okay, so let's look at about a 5-minute video here, kind of, again, talking about the GeoAI model that we have for damage assessment purposes, and then how we can share the results of that model and things like mobile damage assessments to a Teams environment to kind of include more stakeholders within your organization. So this video has no sound, I'll kind of talk to it. So here we have an ArcGIS Online web map. This is aerial imagery that was provided to us through Airbus after the Lahaina fire. And then we have the yellow there, that is a layer of building footprints that we inputted into the map. And now over here in the analysis tab, this is where we're gonna bring in our detect object deep learning model that's actually hosted on ArcGIS Online for free to use. Anyone with an ArcGIS Online organization can bring in these models and do kind of this deep learning analysis within the platform. Again, thanks to being hosted on Azure. So you can see here, I'm just finding this model on ArcGIS Online. I can type in the name. These are already pre-trained as well, so you don't have to worry about training data and training these models. They're ready to go for you. You can enable model settings and kind of trim the argument if you need to. You can see here I'm giving the model an output. The output is actually going to be a layer the model spits out after it analyzes the damage. And that's what you can see here. The footprints that are green symbolize homes that were not damaged, and the red symbolize homes that were or had substantial damage due to the fire. And I'm zooming in here just so you can kind of see that the model was very accurate. So this does not, this is a way just to enhance your work and kind of save time, but it is not a replacement for actually boots on the ground, right? And we understand that. So the next part of the demonstration here, you're gonna see we still do have some mobile capabilities where if you do have boots on the ground, people can use our technology out in the field to either substantiate these models or collect more information that may be needed based on what this model has depicted. So next, I'm gonna open up a dashboard here within a Teams environment that was created kind of giving the metrics of this map here, so kind of giving a snapshot of the totals of damaged buildings, buildings that were not damaged. So you can see here I'm bringing over my Teams channel. You can see I have a channel called ArcGIS Content, and then this is the app I was talking about where we can actually add in our content to the Teams channel. You can see I'm signed in there. And once I sign into my organization, I have 3 options here. I can share existing content I have to that team environment. I can present a map live during a call. Or new, we can sketch and annotate together on a map. So if Zach and I were on a call and we both wanted to sketch and make edits to that map at the same time, we can do that. Here you can see I embedded that dashboard to show our analysis of that damage assessment. This is interactive and dynamic like all of our ArcGIS dashboards. So if I zoom into the map, the indicators on the left and the chart on the right changes and kind of summarizes what you're seeing on the map. Next, I have Survey123 form. This is one of our mobile applications that can be used in the field to report information. And say I have folks in the field or I'm in the field doing damage assessment, and either they're radioing it back to me and I'm inputting information from the Teams channel here, or I'm inputting it on my phone. You can see here in real time, I can fill out information about an additional damage assessment area. And that information is going to be compiled and go to two places. It's going to go to an additional dashboard that I created, and then it's also going to go to a new Teams channel that we'll see here once Past Ryan types into the form here. And he's a very slow typer, as you can see.
What I love about the scenario here is it's showing the integration between multiple platforms across Microsoft, right? We're originally utilizing Esri's SaaS platform, ArcGIS Online, which runs on top of Azure. Then we drilled down into Teams, collaborated and shared some information. Quickly, we were able to create a dashboard that we can give to our leadership to report on the current state of the thing. And now, I think we're getting ready to launch into an automated workflow with Power Automate coming up.
Yep, so this is just an additional dashboard that just the survey created. But now you can see here when I submitted the information on that survey, that other Teams channel became live. And now this channel is called Mobile Assessment Results. And that's just using a Power Automate flow, a very simple Power Automate flow to take the information from that survey 123 form and post it into a specific channel here in Teams. And this is kind of behind the scenes, very simple. I mean, I'm not the best at Power Automate, but I could still handle this. What's nice about this, especially Esri and Microsoft, if you have command staff or executives who may not have a login to ArcGIS Online, but they still want to be kept up to speed about what's going on in the field, they can just view that Teams channel and view all that information outside of the Esri applications. And then Zach, do you want to mention a little bit about the Copilot integration you can have here as well?
Yeah, and so the other thing that was recently announced last user conference was the work that Esri's done to extend Microsoft M365 Copilot. So what this does is it allows any user who's using M365 Copilot, if they ask a geospatial question and they have the Esri plugin turned on, then Copilot recognizes the context of that question, does a full handoff to ArcGIS, and enables ArcGIS to pull back the relevant information that the user has access to see. Without having the user need to go into a specific ArcGIS software tool, right? We often talk about the different user personas within Esri, right? One of them is the GIS professional. They spend a lot of their time working in Esri's main desktop software, ArcGIS Pro, creating rich maps and visuals, showing all of the layers of data on top of a map so you can get faster insights. But the challenge is that many of the leaders in these organizations don't know how to utilize ArcGIS Pro. They don't know how to find this information. Well, everything that we just showed is great, and the work that Esri's done to integrate with M365 Copilot, again, this is another easy button for the enterprise, where now the business decision leader doesn't need to fire off an email to the team lead to say, hey, what's the link to the dashboard? You just say, hey, show me the most recent dashboard for the Lahaina fires. Boom, it's brought right back up in Teams. And again, that's where a lot of the executives and leadership live, right? The collaboration tools. They're not down there in the creative tools like ArcGIS Pro. So again, Esri continues to expand their product line over multiple user personas with the overall goal of enhancing the efficiency of everyone in the organization.
Great, thank you. And similar, I talked about how that deep learning analysis in ArcGIS Online was what we called GeoAI. We have some new GeoAI advancements coming to ArcGIS Online as well, as early as next year, where kind of similar to Copilot, you're going to be able to, if I can come back to the map here. Okay, on the right hand of this map, we're going to have kind of a ChatGPT-like bot, right? Where you can say, have all your map layers active and say, show me all damaged houses in this corner of the map or this area of the map, and it's going to just create a selection, something like that. So that's the intent of where we are going with generative AI at Esri.
And also, real quick, with regards to the GeoAI models that Esri has, they're normally for image classification and identification. So, and you have GeoAI models for identifying almost anything from aerial imagery. Mm-hmm. So this is great because this means that, as you're trying to go out and say, If you're working with Port of San Diego as an example, and you're trying to identify the number of ships in the port on a given day, you don't need to go out and spend the time to create the ML model to specifically identify, okay, is this a ship or not a ship, right? Or what type of ship? Esri has those models already built, publicly available for anybody to use.
Yep, thank you.
And they can be brought in just very simply, as you saw here in the demo.
Okay. So now let's kind of take a look at the ArcGIS system and either software as a service or platform as a service, kind of a deep dive view here. So ArcGIS is by design a comprehensive geospatial platform. It's designed to build systems and solutions, as I mentioned, in some applications that we saw. It has a foundational products, ArcGIS Pro, that's our desktop software. ArcGIS Enterprise and Online, those are both very similar. ArcGIS Online, what we showed here, again, that's software as a service, and that is hosted on Microsoft Azure. Enterprise is more, it's locked down. It's more on your customers on-premise. It's behind a firewall. So a lot of the customers that I work with in the law enforcement space, they deploy ArcGIS Enterprise because they can more securely use their own data within the system here.
So real quick, the way I like to explain it is that Esri's software follows a classic client-server paradigm, right? You've got the client desktop applications that are creating all of the assets for your organization. And after they're created, you need a way to store them, save them, govern them, and make sure that they have the appropriate file permissions, security, and compliance that your organization needs, right? So on the server side of the Esri technologies, you've got two major options. One, you've got ArcGIS Online, which is a SaaS platform that you can utilize to store your assets in the cloud, in Azure. ArcGIS Online also recently became FedRAMP moderate compliant. So they're doing great things there to make sure that you have all of the options for whatever level of compliance and security your organization needs. Now, like Ryan said, if you need more granular control over that server, that's ArcGIS Enterprise, and that is customer deployed into your environment. It can run on a virtual machine, it can run containerized. In Azure, it can run on AKS. And so we've got a few different options for how you can run it. But the great thing is that it's your environment, right? You can drop it into whatever landing zone you want with that right level of security and compliance already available. And then on the client side, ArcGIS Pro is the main flagship product, but there's at least 20 to 30 other separate desktop applications out there to fit the use case for what you're trying to do.
So ArcGIS is a foundational and comprehensive GIS system with capabilities for mapping and analytics, and really it works with all types of data. Everything from vector data to raster data to CAD and BIM in real time, as we mentioned, and graph data too. We just introduced ArcGIS Knowledge about 2 years ago, which if you're familiar with building knowledge graphs, you're kind of creating a graph database. We can now do that within one of our either our ArcGIS Pro or all source desktop products. So now you can have the power of link analysis with a mapping application. And then, these are just some examples of the data formats that we support, and then some of the work capabilities as well. So let's focus on how ArcGIS comes together as a well-architected IT system, available, as we said, software as a service, or platform as a service. So it all starts with your data as a foundational element, data that can come together from various data sources, as we said, information models, and real-time feeds. That data is then translated into what we call services that can be accessed via data management tools, data access services, mapping and analytics services, and so on. It's these services that facilitate collaboration across the organization, meaning should a user make changes to the service or new information is added or updated, that service will permeate across the entire system.
The COVID-19 dashboard, right, that Johns Hopkins University put together utilizing Esri's technology and Microsoft, that's an example of a service, right?
Correct. Yep. So that basically that service was the layer on the map showing that not only the case information of where that case was, but then how it was able to be updated in real time and spit out some of those other metrics from that dashboard that you saw. So that when the service is accessed, though, apps and APIs, or through apps and APIs, the organization is always acting on the most up-to-date information. And that's one of the, when I talk with a lot of customers who are interested in integrating, say, their record management systems or their CAD systems, if they're a police department or a fire department, they always ask, can that be integrated into ArcGIS? And the answer is always yes. You know, if we can have access to an API, or even basically if it's some type of flat file with location information, we can integrate it. Mm-hmm. And that can be then turned into what we call a service and used in all of our applications here. Additionally, the service-based system is built on foundational IT pillars that you see here. ArcGIS is open and interoperable, allowing you to integrate and work with Microsoft products your organization already uses, as well as programming languages your staff is familiar with, such as Jupyter Notebooks, Python, and R. We actually have an application called ArcGIS Notebooks, which are a version of Jupyter Notebooks that you can use to run different analytics and geoprocessing tools within ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Pro. And as Zach mentioned, Esri continually advances the security of ArcGIS, maintaining compliance with ISO, SOC, FedRAMP Moderate, we just said we became a couple months ago on ArcGIS Online. And Enterprise is CGIS compliant as well, if we have some public safety agency folks in here. And of course, ArcGIS prioritizes performance, scalability, reliability, and observability into the system. So it's the coming together of all this that brings together a modern GIS with the standard IT practice.
GIS isn't easy, right? Managing data and visualizing that data and getting real-time insights is not easy. And I think a lot of companies struggle with that challenge. The Esri suite of products here, again, it's to enhance, those decision-making capabilities for all of your data that has location attribute, right? Or locations that you want to see more additional data on top of. So again, there's a lot of things here on the screen, but the important thing to remember is that all of Esri's products, they can all be run in the customer environment in Azure. You can also take advantage of Esri's capabilities of their SaaS platform as well to accelerate your workload, right? With the SaaS platform comes a reduced cost of ownership of the environment.
Okay, so again, this is just to kind of wrap up and show the capabilities we have with Microsoft applications if you're a Microsoft user, which I know everyone here is. Again, we have those suite of plugins or add-ins for Microsoft 365, kind of the Power Automate and spatial automation in the Power Platform. And then we do have a little bit newly introduced to Microsoft Fabric. Zach, did you have anything you wanted to add on the Fabric piece?
There were a lot of announcements at our Build conference around Esri's workload in Fabric. There are a lot of announcements here at Ignite around where those capabilities are going. We're just exiting out of a private preview with Esri's first workload on Fabric, which brings in their geoanalytics engine product into the Fabric platform. And so this would be for doing analysis at scale, right, through an ML notebook. If you wanted to quickly spatially enrich high amounts of data in a very short period of time, this is probably one of the best ways to do it. So Fabric, as many of you are aware, Spark-based compute. 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗸𝗀𝗃 file format. With Esri's technology, we're able to drop in GeoParquet on top of that to add in the location attributes that we want to better, more quickly analyze and enrich that data and then make it discoverable and visible. And so Power BI is also another area where Esri has a direct integration with the Microsoft products. In addition to what's shown here with the M365 apps and Power Platform. The thing I mention about this all the time is this is the only suite of productivity and collaboration tools that Esri natively integrates with. So if you're using the Microsoft platforms today, and you want to make use of Esri, there's a very synergistic value to leveraging everything that they have available. In addition to the work that continues to go on with M365 Copilot. So again, trying to get those real-time decisions faster, more available to different user personas across your entire enterprise.
Okay, with that, there's the QR code for the survey, and we'll open it up for some questions.
No questions?
We did that well.
I'll ask one.
Sure.
So you talked a little bit about the Fabric integrations and other things and using ArcGIS. So for organizations that have a lot of geospatial data, I'm very interested in how it can use some of those integrations and capabilities to do processing at scale and bring not just the built-in predefined models, but custom AI models into that processing pipeline. So can you talk a little bit about some of the integrations? I know Fabric a little bit, but how that would work at scale and help with that sort of problem?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the great things about Fabric is you have the ability to bring in multiple disparate data sources into that common platform, right? And when it's brought into that common 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃 file format. So you can quickly bring in data sources that may be outside of your ArcGIS ecosystem, right? Within ArcGIS, a lot of data gets stored in what Esri calls a geodatabase, right? That's a specific schema that's relational, again, built to optimize how Esri's software works. With Esri's geoanalytics engine, this is a collection of 150 different Python libraries that are built for doing spatial analysis in a data science notebook environment. Now, to be clear, there are a lot of alternatives to this, but one thing the geoanalytics engine does that no other library out there will do is it automatically does indexing and parallelizes all the operations in there, resulting in much faster throughput on the amount of data that you're trying to analyze. Again, I was mentioning, Esri's just exiting a private preview with about 15 select customers. The feedback, some of the candid feedback from that was actually kind of funny. We had one person from a very large company say, I wasn't sure if this was actually working or not because it said the job ran in 2 minutes when I knew that normally this same routine would take a couple hours. But yes, it actually completed and worked and was very performant. And so now the next stage of that, Esri is going to be going into a public preview, right? Where I believe the geoanalytics engine within Fabric should be available for anybody to try out, right? So no licensing cost on that, but you would still need to incur the compute that you use in the Fabric platform. Now, with Fabric, you're in control of the models and the analysis that you want to do. But if you need to do something more around image classification, image object identification, that's where within Esri's SaaS platform, they have an area called the Living Atlas, which is a curated set of publicly available imagery from major sources like Sentinel-2, Landsat, land collections. So these are satellite constellations that are publicly, the imagery is publicly available, but sometimes it's hard to access. So Living Atlas brings all that together in addition to about over 200 different pre-trained models, classical ML models, again, to help accelerate your time to do image identification, and classification.
And we do have capabilities too within our desktop software, ArcGIS Pro,
Yeah.
that if there's a model that you cannot find, you can train and build your own within ArcGIS Pro, and then you can either share that out to the web for other users to use, or keep it within Pro. There's some what we call geoprocessing toolboxes that have tools to do that.
Over 2,000 of
Yes.
them, actually.
Yep.
And I know that we're working on a project with Azure right now to build an internal copilot. So the ArcGIS Copilot, which will be coming out hopefully next year, that again aims to increase the efficiency of that GIS professional using Pro. One of the things that Esri's found is that GIS professionals are very focused on that niche area of the world that they work in. So because of that, they may only know how to use a certain number of tools within the overall geoprocessing toolkit. What the Copilot aims to do is help users quickly understand and utilize other tools in the toolbox to produce new analyses, new visualizations, and new insights that they may have never thought of doing before. Next question.
I'm always too short. Okay, so we've got a lot of people here that are trying to just maybe start building their own platforms on top of Azure. So I have kind of a two-parter question. One is you're bringing in a lot of data, right? And can you talk a little bit about the infrastructure that you're using to ingest that data, analyze, and display it out? And then if you were to talk to somebody trying to kind of just start building their own platform on top of Azure, do you have any, what would you say would be your guidance to them?
Great question. So for the first one, how do you bring that data into the Azure platform? A lot of options for that. I mean, but again, one of the interesting things about data is that a lot of it sits in the database, but the most interesting data always happens in real time. And so through some of Esri's products like ArcGIS Velocity, Velocity is a tool that allows you to basically pick up any kind of location-based feed, right? It could be RSS data, it could be IoT feeds, anything, and bring that natively into the platform and help you immediately visualize that in real time. So think about supply chain movements of assets or troops in the field. Many use cases for bringing in IoT and real-time sensor information into the platform. And then on the second part of that, what advice would we give to a customer who's looking to create their own ArcGIS environment? We have a lot of guidance out there on the public-facing Microsoft website and also on Esri's website around cloud-specific guidance that's aligned with Microsoft's well-architected framework to show you how to go in and set up a landing zone to be able to begin bringing in assets that you would need for your GIS environment, right? Which could vary greatly depending upon the challenges that you're trying to solve. Again, I always go back to Esri software operates in that client-server paradigm, and the server technology that you would deploy into your environment would be ArcGIS Enterprise. The client-side software is ArcGIS Pro. Pro can run on a virtual machine. It works best powered by an NVIDIA GPU. And also what we've seen, a pattern that's emerged recently is virtualizing Esri's desktop software. And software virtualization, there's a lot of options out there. In the Microsoft platform, we have one called Azure Virtual Desktop. AVD is actually a leader in the space. Gartner did a Magic Quadrant study of VDI capabilities back in 2023 and had us at the far top right. The reason for that was Gartner said no other virtualization technology is owned by a company that also controls the operating system, the cloud platform, and all the other hooks required to make it perform super efficiently. Another major benefit that we have within the Azure platform is NetApp Files. So NetApp Files provides super high throughput on all of your data that you're trying to read. within Esri, as you're doing 3D modeling, this becomes very important because it means that you can consume a lot of information very rapidly and you get the best performance from it. So again, we've got guidance on how to stand up the basics of an Esri environment on the Microsoft side, in addition to how to get started with virtualizing some of their flagship desktop software like ArcGIS Pro. And then also I know Esri has a lot of guidance as well on your website.
Yep.
And with that, I'm watching the timer count down.
Just got the red light.
All right, so if no other questions, you can come find us after the talk, but thank you very much. Enjoy your Friday.
Thank you.